Hello and welcome to Man, Woman, God. I'm Nikki Cauchi, your host for the show. I'm speaking with Wendy Miles, who is a multi-talented individual. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Hi Nikki, thank you for inviting me.
Now Wendy, you have had an amazing career up until now. Tell me everything that you've done.
Oh gosh, I have. Not sure about everything, but yes, I've dabbled in a few things. Started out as a registered nurse, did a couple of years in the arts, realised that it's hard to get work as an actor. 93% are out of work. So then studied business, got into telemedicine, and that really just evolved into working in the IT industry in pre and post sales, then account management. And 10 years ago, I probably started what I considered my life work, which was Nurse's Heart.
And you've also invented something, and you've been on the New Inventors program. So
yes.
What was that?
Yeah, well look, Nurse's Heart was about helping nurses connect with their passion and their dreams and you know, facilitating a pathway to actually do that. But there was no money. No one actually cared too much about the heart of the nurse and what was going on in her or his world, mainly her. So as I was working in hospitals for cash flow at the time when I was starting the idea, actually, I noticed that there was another problem, and nurses were always running away from the patient, stressed, busy. You know, being with the patient was where our job satisfaction was. So I thought and looked all over the world. There was nothing other than old-fashioned aprons, which is an image of nursing that I rejected as a young woman, or travel bum bags, which were not very good from an organisation point of view and from infection control point of view. So I started prototyping, had a really good response to what I was bringing out to the marketplace, and then I thought, I know, I'll raise my own revenue and I'll forget about coaching and the Nurse's Heart, so to speak, and I'll sell product, raise my own revenue for a couple of years, get it onto a roll, and then I'll get on with the heart of the business.
So you invented the Joey pouch.
I did.
That's amazing.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, so it was a nurse utility belt, effectively, just an extension of your pocket system, really.
So it was the first one of its kind.
It was.
At that time.
It was in the world, yeah. Nurses, when I came back into nursing, having done the telemedicine and the IT thing, and I just came in with the view to do a few shifts to keep my registration, I thought, gosh, it's interesting how little has changed. How much has changed, but how little has actually changed in nursing, the way we work, what we do. You know, so it was just one area that I thought, well, look, I can simply make a difference here. So now probably 100,000 nurses around Australia are wearing a utility belt to work every day, and we ship internationally as well.
That's fantastic.
So.
Well done. Now, Wendy, I want to talk about on Christmas Eve, 2010, you found a lump in your breast.
I did, yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Well, it actually started that September, October. I thought I felt something. And I only mention that because I think it's important that any woman listening, you know, or man, 4% of men get breast lumps. You know, if you think you feel something, then just get to the doctor. I had actually had a biopsy of a cyst in 2006, and a very famous surgeon said to me, Wendy, just because your mother died of breast cancer doesn't mean that you're statistically at any more risk than any other woman. However, what I wish she had said to me is, first up, Wendy, you're female, so you are at risk. 1 in 8 of us in Australia get a breast lump sometime in our lives. So you need to be vigilant. We all do. However, you know, because your mother died of breast cancer doesn't mean that statistically you're, you know, going to be at risk. So that was the background. And I don't know, I just relaxed, I think, after that. 2006, I did a breast examination every now and again. We know that most partners, husbands, find breast lumps. So being single, I don't have a partner who would be looking for a lump. So about 4 times a year I would probably think, oh, now, you know, I better have a quick check, which I did September, October, and thought I felt something but wasn't really sure. And I actually got somebody else to check it, and they dismissed it. Said, oh, you'll be right.
Was that a medical person?
No. Okay. Lesson number 1. Yeah. go to a medical person. So I
So then you had it officially diagnosed?
Well, Christmas Eve. So look, I was stressed. I was busy with the business. A lot was happening in the business. Looking back, I think probably a lot, I probably was more stressed than what I usually would be, because obviously something was going on in my body. And yeah, Christmas Eve I thought, look, I'll just have a health check, start the new year afresh, knowing I've got a clean bill of health. And lo and behold, felt something that clearly was there.
Okay, so Wendy, then what happened? Did you have to go and
went to the
have
doctor
surgery?
that day, being Christmas Eve. For once, it was quiet. So had a mammogram, had a core biopsy after that. I hesitate just because there was a whole lot happening there, but so had a mammogram, had a core biopsy, and then that showed that I did have breast cancer. At first, the mammogram revealed it was in 2 breasts. The core biopsy said no, it's only in 1. One surgeon said, I'm not worried about, the other breast. The other one said, I am concerned about it. So ended up having surgery on both, and it was only in 1. And interestingly, went from being a grade 2 to a grade 3, which is, loosely termed fast or more aggressive. So, yeah, it was a fair bit to deal with at that time.
Wendy, you're a Christian, so what was going through your mind? Was it like, God, what is happening?
Yeah, I was very surprised that it hadn't, because even the day before, I actually got the phone call from the doctor when I had my mammogram. So on the 29th of December, I had my mammogram. I was out to brunch with a friend celebrating her birthday. Every year I do a collage, for the year, which becomes my canvas of conversation, really, with God, with myself, with the world, I slap on pictures and words and images that speak to me and that I need to say to the world, and it has a bit of what I'm hoping for and praying for, for the future. And there was this big phrase, the day that changed my life.
Wendy, we're going to have to stop there. We're going to come back to that. We're going to have a break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Hello and welcome back. I'm speaking with Wendy Miles, who on Christmas Eve 2010 discovered that she had a lump in her breast. Wendy, we were talking about the day that changed your life.
Yes, well, I was talking with my friend over brunch, and she and I said, look, it could be, when I think about the year in reflection, it could be this day or it could be that day. But, the fact that I actually am wondering, makes me think, did it actually change my life, after all? So an hour later, I got home and got the phone call from my doctor, who obviously was very regretful that she had to make that call, and telling me that it looked like I had breast cancer.
Okay, Wendy, now who were the first people that you actually spoke to?
Well, it was an interesting time of year to be diagnosed. So I was just on my way that day to spend a couple of days with my youngest sister and her family in their new camper van. So I was pretty keen not to, smear the holiday with news of my breast cancer. So I had a dog that I needed to get cared for. So interestingly, also before the doctor rang, I had at random looked in the yellow pages, saw that there were 2 boarding kennels up in Meetung, rang a local random accommodation house just merely to ask, have you heard the reputation of this and that, boarding kennels, which one would you recommend? Turns out he offered to take my dog. So I drove from home up to his accommodation place to give him my dog Molly. And I don't know how it happened, but it all just came tumbling out. So in fact, he was a total stranger. And interestingly, he was a Christian. So what are the chances of that? And he was down from Queensland just to mind these accommodation houses over summer. And he was just on the money straight away. And the first thing he said is, you need to give thanks in all things. Which normally you feel like socking someone who, yeah, it's all right, all very well for you to say that. But in fact, he was really right. And that was something that God started to speak to me over the next few weeks, which did actually make a big difference and led to me starting a gratitude journal, which, I just bought a book, 365. It's got a number on each page. And I just thought, at the end of every day through all of this, I'm just going to write down one thing that I can say thank you for today. So, it was, and that now is my book of joy. I also had a journal because I've always journaled, but I kept them separate in that, anything went into my journal. But in my thank you book, it was just, I'm just going to say thank you. And if you had a flick, you would see that it's not just one thing on every page. I actually ran out of room most days. So,
Wendy, I want to talk about your family because, as you said, that your mother died of cancer, so that was 12 years ago. And, I want to know what their reaction was, because now they're reliving it all again with somebody that, they love who's going through another cancer battle. Like, what must they all be thinking?
Yeah, look, I think we didn't talk a lot. I think everyone traditionally, in a Christian kind of way, tries to stay positive. I did have a moment with my younger sister when she helped me shave my head for the first time, because I couldn't quite see all of it. And when I had my chemo and lost my hair, and that was a big thing, going from long hair to short hair, that was hard. And we had a bit of a cry together, and that was a really sweet moment that I will remember. Look, I think being the big sister, I tried to protect them from it a bit. I didn't take them to appointments. I probably did about 100 appointments on my own, because I didn't want to, or friends came sometimes, but I didn't want to drag them through it. I think it was particularly hard for the brothers-in-law. I think, obviously they've all got children. And I thought, well, look, if there's anyone in the family, at least I don't have children. So, no, I wasn't happy about getting it. No, not happy. But, I was glad for them that they didn't have the worry with children and all of that. So.
Now, Wendy, I just want to also ask, this is a question that, is totally acceptable. Did you ever say, why me, God?
Look, I don't remember asking that question. So, you go through a range of emotions. I remember feeling sad for me because I was still hopeful, I was still young, and as the doctor said, you're young, so we're going to give you the full treatment. And I was still, and I knew the implications for my life and what the next 12, 24 months was going to look like. So I felt sad, I felt angry probably at different times, but a lot of that is hormonal, a lot of that is drug induced, all that sort of stuff. So I used to laugh and talk to the married women and say, well, you think you're angry with your husband, but actually I'm home alone and I'm still angry. So I think, it's just all a natural part of the journey.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you also belong to a very large Christian community.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what was their reaction? Because knowing that, one of their friends, their, fellow churchgoer is, and, you belong to a Christian community, so it's
Sure.
Do Christians get cancer?
Yeah, that's it. And look, and I think...
And what have you done to get it?
That's exactly it. And look, the charismatic Pentecostal church, we don't handle it very well. And I certainly felt, there was some... well, no, let me say what I know. What I know is that I'm loved and my sin is forgiven, as is yours. So it actually has nothing to do about my sin, because I'm not a greater sinner. We're all sinners. I'm not a greater sinner than anybody else. So, and I'm loved by God, like everybody else is. So the culture in big churches, it is tough when you're going through that, because it would appear that a different message comes through because, the devil gives cancer, which I'm sure he does, but I'm also sure that he doesn't, that Jesus never said that. That's not actually biblical. But leaving the politics aside, let me tell you a great story. After the tsunami...
Actually, can we come back to that, Wendy, because we have to go to a break, but we'll come back to that story. We will be back in a few minutes. Hello and welcome back. I'm speaking with Wendy Miles. Wendy, you're about to tell me a story.
I was, a good story. You know, I have a lot of really good friends in the church who were amazing through the whole time, and I couldn't have done it without them. So, you know, like any family, there's always good and bad stuff that you have to deal with, you know. But it was interesting, on the Sunday morning that I was making myself scrambled egg, the tsunami had just happened in Japan. I'd had 2 sessions of chemo, my hair was starting to fall out, and I was just kind of muttering the Lord's Prayer, and I got to give us this day our daily bread, and I kind of fell apart. And that's where I got real with God and said, well, actually, God, you know, that's probably what I'm about to find out, what that really means to say each day, give us this day our daily bread. As I was very mindful of the Japanese in the tsunami situation as well. So that very day, 3 hours later, I was approached by a friend of a friend, Sarah Butler, who her and her husband own Organic Angels, and long story short, they offered to, she asked me how I'm going, and she said, look, this is what we'd really like to do, and they basically delivered a box of fruit and veggies, organic fruit and veggies, for 12 months, which was amazing. So that was my daily bread. Oh, how fantastic. That was my manna from heaven. So people were amazing, just amazing what they, you know, they did.
Now, Wendy, you've discovered through all of this 3 things that have come out of you having cancer. What are they? Surprising things, I guess. My gratitude journal was a surprise. It was just an idea to sort of start writing down a thank you thing, and that's become my book of joy, and that's just now become a habit. And I really do think, even if you don't believe in God, I would challenge you actually, for the people who don't believe in God, to just grab a book and start a gratitude diary, because as you just say thank you, it attracts. If you were a parent and you had a child who said thank you every day, you know, you just attract the providence of heaven over your life. You know, that's what happens. So, and I know that in that conversation, somehow you'll bump into God somewhere along that journey. So my gratitude journal, drawing. I didn't know I could draw. So I've actually started bedside productions, because that's what happened. I just found a delight and a safe and a spacious place in using my pens, you know, my ink and my colours, and just drawing. It kind of just took me somewhere, which was great. So now I sell cards and do all that sort of thing. And the third thing, not quite sure what. The badminton.
Oh, okay. Yes, the badminton. That's
with the
right.
old ladies.
Yes. Oh, I love it. So I've joined my local community. Because I work for myself, so I'm able to do that on Tuesday morning, and the 70s and 80-year-olds play badminton. So it's good exercise, it's good for my brain, you know, getting it back after chemo, and I just love the women who are there. It's just, and I think out of all of this, it's you really do go, what matters in life? You know, is it the rhetoric? Is it the institutions? Is it, you know, or is it actually community and loving one another? You know, and I just, you know, I'm grateful for that opportunity to connect with my neighbourhood. And in fact, you asked earlier, you know, who did I tell? The first 3 people I told were strangers, you know, total strangers who spoke miraculously into my life, whether it was through the Christian, the first one, through the woman who gave me a hug, and just a hug that I needed to have and let me bawl my eyes out, and then the copper who picked me up on New Year's Day, you know, at 8:30 in the morning to do a breath test. So yeah, it was interesting. I was clean, which was good.
And did he let you go?
He let me go.
You weren't fined.
He let me go, so it was good.
Wendy, is there ever a thought in the back of your mind, you know, what if it comes back? Are you healed?
I am healed. That's my word. That's my conversation with God today, you know. But I am also very aware that my times are in His hands. Psalm 31 says, my times are in his hands, you know, and the reality is none of us ever know what's around the corner. But what I do know and what I have learned through the conversation that I've had with God, that I've just allowed with God, you know, on those days where it doesn't feel like he's around or there's anything happening and, you know, how am I going to get out of this being self-employed? I have a mortgage and on my own, coping with all the physicalness of it. What am I going to do? Out of that place, I still converse with God, you know, and at critical moments, it's interesting because reading my gratitude journal now, it's clear that God has intervened. At the moments that I really needed him to intervene, bang, you know, he changed things. There's a gorgeous scripture in the Psalms which talks about our tears and how our tears are actually recorded in heaven and they're kept in an alabaster vase, you know, and as a single you've just got to know that. You've just got to know that your life is being watched, that you are known and that you are loved. And I think out of all of this, the love of God is what I have experienced, what I know, and I thought I knew it before, but now I really know it. Tomorrow is really uncertain. I have no idea, but I know that I've got my stay. You know, I've got my place in the universe and God's going to look after me wherever I am, whatever happens, you know. Tomorrow, it's a different word, but it'll be a living word, you know, a word for that day. So that I do know. I love the Pink Bible. If, you know, anyone knows anyone with breast cancer, it's got lots of scriptures in it that are highlighted in pink so that, you know, when you're not well and you're going through therapy, you just randomly open the Bible, you know, it's highlighted scriptures which are great. So
what does the future hold for Wendy Miles?
Who knows? Who knows? But it's all good.
Excellent. That's so great to hear.
It is all good, you know, because a lot of good happened last year. If anything, it's given me clarity, and what more could one want than love in life, you know? So, and I feel loved, I am loved, and I love, so.
Wendy, you are an amazing individual, and I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. And can I just thank everybody, you know, who reached out and helped me and was there for me last year. You know, you're all amazing.
Thanks, Wendy. Well, that's all we have on Man, Woman, God today. We'll be back next week with more.